You're convinced that the fiat currency era is coming to an end and that we're witnessing sort of a remonetization of precious metals such as gold. So why do you think that?
Well, I think that's going to happen. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet. But I think the fact that central banks around the world have now got interest rates down at zero or near zero, the fact that so many sovereign bonds actually have negative yields, not just in real terms, where you take the nominal yield and you subtract the inflation rate, but we actually have negative yielding nominal rates. And, this really shows that the central bankers are really at the end of the rope here when it comes to this failed experiment with fiat currency. And, the difference between fiat currency and legitimate currency is a fiat currency is backed by nothing other than just confidence that people will accept it in the future, and the fact that governments, mandate that taxes be paid in those currencies. But real currency is backed by real money, which is gold, silver, some other form of commodity. But most countries have used gold as money. And so when currencies were backed by gold, they had real value. And it also placed limits on the supply. Governments could only create currency if they had the gold to back it up. And so you had stability, long-term stability as far as purchasing power. And governments couldn't run large deficits because they needed gold. Today, there's really nothing standing between governments and big deficits because you don't have the discipline that gold would place. So, but I think we're getting to the end of this, these huge global imbalances, the enormous amount of debt that exists in the world. I think we're about to see a collapse. I think we're going to see a resurgence of inflation. I mean, a lot of the central bankers have claimed that their role is to create more inflation, that we don't have enough of it. Well, that's the one thing they will succeed at, is creating inflation. We will have a tremendous amount of inflation. And I think that it will shake confidence in the fiat system, particularly the dollar-denominated system, where the dollar stands as the reserve currency for all these other fiat currencies. And so I do think that ultimately the world will go back to the system that existed prior to Bretton Woods. Prior to the U.S. dollar being the reserve, gold was the reserve.
In a recent interview, you claimed that Bitcoin is what you said, overhyped digital nothing. Why do you believe that?
Bitcoin is trying to be money, but it can't succeed at being money for a number of reasons. I mean, number one, there's no stability in Bitcoin, even on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it probably fluctuates a few percent here and there. I mean, sometimes you'll see Bitcoin move 10% within a day. I mean, normally it's not that volatile. But it's pretty volatile, and it's kind of too volatile to really price products in it. You can't fix a price in Bitcoin because you really don't know, what Bitcoin is going to be worth from hour to hour, day to day. So it's hard, and it is kind of expensive to do the transactions. I mean, if I'm sending somebody $1 million worth of Bitcoin, the cost might not be that much. But if I want to buy something for $5 or $10, the transaction costs are pretty high. For Bitcoin. So it makes it inefficient as a medium of exchange, but it's also not a store of value because it doesn't have any underlying value to store. The only value it has is what speculators are willing to pay for it because they think the price is going to go up. But that you can't base a monetary system on that. You have to have, a real intrinsic value that will be reliable over time, so that you can you can borrow in it, you can make long-term plans in it. You can't do any of that with Bitcoin. If you really understand why gold is money, then you understand why there's nothing similar between Bitcoin and gold. Bitcoin is able to replicate some of the properties, and maybe all of the properties, that made gold better money than other commodities that could have been money, right? Those are the things like portability, divisibility, fungibility, immutability. I mean, there are a lot of characteristics that made gold a better form of money than like cattle, or wheat, or salt, or whatever, right? Gold was better as a commodity than these other commodities. But what Bitcoin does not capture, and what none of the other couple of thousand cryptocurrencies capture, is the inherent value of gold to begin with, right? I mean, in order to be money, you have to be a commodity first. You have to have value. And, gold is a highly desirable metal. It is the most useful metal on the periodic table. and therefore it will always be in demand. And the beautiful thing about gold is gold never loses any of its properties over time. It doesn't decay. It doesn't rust. Even if it turns out that cryptocurrencies are going to work, which I don't think they will, but even if it turns out that some cryptocurrency could one day be a viable medium of exchange and a store of value, how do you know that that cryptocurrency is Bitcoin? How do you know that somebody doesn't come up with a better mousetrap? Because throughout history, no invention has not been improved. Right? There has never been an example where the first was the best. Right? The first telephone was not the best telephone. The first car was not the best car. The first television was not the best. The first cell phone, whatever it is. Anything man can invent, man can improve. Gold has never been improved upon. Right? Man did not make gold. We discovered it, but it was a creation of God.
But you recently did say that Libra, which is Facebook's proposed cryptocurrency, or at least the currency proposed by the Calibra Association, with Facebook as a part of it, would be better than Bitcoin. So what did you mean by that?
Well, it would be better in that it would work. It could actually function as a medium of exchange and a short-term store of value. I don't think it would be any better as a long-term store of value than the euro or the yen or the dollar, because that's what it's backed by. But it could certainly be a short-term store of value, and it could act as a medium of exchange. And in fact, I think it would be better than the dollar, which is why I think the U.S. government may not allow it. If Facebook was going to back Libra with just U.S. dollars, I don't think the federal government would really have a problem with that. But because they're going to back it by a basket of currencies, and the dollar would only be one, I think they would actually be creating a currency that could circulate in the United States that would be more desirable than the U.S. dollar. And that would represent a threat to the U.S. government's monopoly on currency. And so, they may not want Facebook to pursue that. But I would be all in favor of it. I would like to see as many private companies creating money. And I think, Libra would be better if it were backed by gold rather than, these fiat currencies.
I saw on Twitter recently that you had a debate with Anthony Pompliano, during which, and in the aftermath of which, people started sending you Bitcoin. It's all over the crypto Twitterverse. So I'm just curious, what are you planning to do with the Bitcoin you have? At a certain point yesterday, it was worth about $1,300, probably more now since Bitcoin is about to break.
I think the most my Bitcoin was worth was about 2,700, 2,800. I got over 2,000. I got about maybe 2,500, worth of it gifted to me. Interestingly enough, it was Anthony that was supposed to send me some Bitcoin, because he said, hey, give me your Bitcoin wallet, because I had a wallet that Eric Voorhees set up for me when I debated him, and he had given me like $50 worth of Bitcoin. That's all I had. And and then it kind of got out that I had some Bitcoin, and people were kind of speculating that I had a lot more than I really did. And Anthony was talking about how I had Bitcoin, and I said, well, I got $50 worth. I got it as a gift. What's the big deal? And then he put on Twitter, well, give me your wallet address. I'll give you $100 more. And so I said, fine. So I found my wallet address. It took me a couple of tries. I didn't really know where it was. And then I put it on Twitter. And then Anthony didn't give me any money, because I asked him yesterday, did you ever give me any money? He said, no. So he didn't give me any money. But a lot of other people did. Probably 100 people gave me some Bitcoin, rather, not money. I got Bitcoin. My thought is that it's going to go down. I don't think I'm going to be able to buy a Lambo with it like a lot of people think. But yeah, if anybody wants to gift Bitcoin, that's fine. That wallet will accept all the Bitcoin people want to send to it. That doesn't mean I've embraced it. That doesn't mean that I believe in it. I haven't bought any, and my intention is not to buy any.
Cointelegraph. Like, subscribe, and hodl.